Seattle chose its first woman as mayor 100 years ago, Bertha Landes. In 1981, as newspapers struggled to employ non-sexist terms, and I was in Oregon covering education for the Corvallis Daily, the woman heading the school board pulled me aside. "Please don't write that I'm the chairperson," she said. "It sounds like I'm the one who sets up the chairs." In that vignette's spirit of gender equality, this week we celebrate a centennial. Monday, March 9th, marks the 100th anniversary of the 1926 election of the first woman as Seattle mayor, and the first woman to helm any major U.S. city. She was Bertha Knight Landes, serving just one term when mayoral terms were only 2 years, unlike today's 4. With her husband Henry, whom she later labeled her Tower of Strength, she moved in 1896 from Massachusetts to Seattle, where he became science dean at the University of Washington. Gradually, she attained leadership in local women's clubs, whose influence swelled with the passage of statewide women's suffrage in 1910. She won election to the city council in 1922 and 1925, serving 2 years as its president. As acting mayor in 1924, while Mayor Edwin Brown attended the Democratic National Convention, Landes fired the police chief, whom she said was lax about bootlegging and gambling. 2 years later, seeking the city's top job, she invoked domestic wordplay, municipal house cleaning, while promoting a pushback on vice. Landes, just over 5 feet tall, was reserved and plain-spoken, choosing to neither accentuate nor duck her gender. If the men will not show enough interest in their city government to get the right kind of candidates in the field, the women must, the 57-year-old said the night before defeating the incumbent by 48,700 to 42,802 votes. Ironically, her novelty in 1926 became a liability in 1928. "Her sex is against her," read a New York Times subhead in capital letters. An elusive, wealthy businessman, Frank Edwards, whom Landes labeled a name, a photograph, and a rumor, ran against her with the slogan, "The man you would be proud to call mayor." Though endorsed by newspapers and labor, Landes lost re-election, 39,819 to 58,873. Landes died in 1943. After her mayoral term, it took 91 years for Seattle to elect a second woman to the post. Jenny Durkin served from November 2017 through 2021. In our now photo, we place new Mayor Katie Wilson, the third woman voted into the office, next to a Landes reception chair gifted to the city in 2006. It stands behind glass in a vast first-floor City Hall meeting room named for Landes. In its honorary promontory, this chair is unlikely to be set up or taken down again. In our first then photo, Mayor Bertha Knight Landes talks by phone at her desk in 1927. On March 9, 1926, when Seattle's population was roughly 340,000, she won election over incumbent Edwin Brown by 48,700 to 42,802 votes. In our next then photo, a flyer for Landes' mayoral campaign in early 1926. In our next then photo, Landes, who lost her bid for a second term in 1928, watches as her winning opponent, businessman Frank Edwards, proverbially cleans house. 3 years later, Edwards was recalled. In our next then photo, a year and a half into her mayoral term, on November 7th, 1927, Seattle's Bertha Landes ceremoniously breaks ground for Civic Auditorium, built on the site of today's McCaw Hall at Mercer Street. In our next then photo, in 1927, Landes Center presents a radio to children at the Theodora Home, a refuge for homeless women and their children in Northeast Seattle. In our next then photo, backed by a U.S. flag, Landes presides at a hearing desk in 1927. In our next then photo, in November 2017, Jenny Durkin, the second woman elected Seattle mayor, exults after her swearing in. And in our final then photo, the cover of the 1994 biography of Bertha Landes by the late Sandra Harsager. Today, elected last November, Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson, the third woman to hold the city's top job, stands next to a restored early 20th century Queen Anne-style reception chair from Landes' office that was donated to the city in 2006 by Landes' grandniece, Neva Gerb. It was dedicated in the first floor Bertha Landes room at City Hall in February 2007.